I remember dying alone in that nursing home bed, my hands covered in bruises they said were from falls, my bank accounts empty, my children laughing in the hallway about their new cars. I remembered the nurse who finally listened, too late, finding me unresponsive after they'd accidentally given me the wrong medication. I remembered the police investigation that went nowhere because I was already gone. And then I woke up on my 72nd birthday, 3 years before my death, with my daughter-in-law's fake smile hovering over me like a vulture. "Make a wish, Mom," Rebecca chirped, her voice saccharine and sharp. I stared at the cake. Store-bought? Cheap? The same one from last time. My son Michael stood behind her, arms crossed, checking his watch. My daughter Sarah was on her phone, not even pretending to care. This was the birthday that started it all. The birthday when they first suggested I was getting confused and needed help managing things. In my first life, I'd believed them. Not this time. "I wish," I said slowly, watching their faces, for clarity. Rebecca's smile tightened. She didn't like that answer. She wanted me confused, pliable, easy to manipulate. That's what they all wanted. "Well, blow out the candles before you burn the house down," Sarah muttered, finally looking up from her phone. "You know how forgetful you've been getting." There it was, the first seed. I hadn't been forgetful. Not then, not ever. But they'd spent months laying groundwork, telling neighbors I'd left the stove on. I hadn't. That I'd forgotten appointments. They'd never told me about them. That I'd been wandering. I'd been taking my daily walks, same as always. I blew out the candles and smiled. "Thank you all for coming. I know how busy you are." "About that, Mom," Michael started, and I could recite what came next word for word. "Rebecca and I have been talking. We're worried about you living alone in this big house. What if something happened? Your father left you well provided for," Rebecca added, her eyes gleaming. "My husband had died 5 years ago, leaving me a comfortable pension, the paid-off house, and a portfolio worth just over $2 million. But managing all those investments, the bills, the property taxes, it's a lot for anyone, let alone someone your age. Someone my age. I was 72, not 92. I still drove, gardened, volunteered at the library, and managed my finances just fine. But they needed me incompetent. "We think it would be easier if we helped," Sarah chimed in, pocketing her phone. "United Front." They'd rehearsed this. "We've talked to a lawyer. If you sign a power of attorney, we can handle all the stressful stuff. You can just relax and enjoy your retirement." In my first life, I'd been touched by their concern. I'd signed the papers within a week. The abuse started immediately. First, they'd moved me out of my house, too much to maintain, and into a small apartment. Then they'd sold the house and pocketed the money. Then came the budgeting, where they controlled every penny, doling out allowances like I was a child. Then the isolation, no phone, no internet, no visitors without their approval. Then the nursing home, the cheapest one they could find, where I'd rotted while they spent my money on luxury cars and vacations. Then the bruises, the accidents, the medications I didn't need that made me foggy and compliant. Then death. "That's very thoughtful," I said, standing up from the table. "But I'll have to think about it." The room went silent. This wasn't the script. "Think about it?" Michael's voice had an edge. "Mom, we're trying to help you. And I appreciate that." I started clearing the cake plates, my hands steady. "But it's a big decision. I'll need time." "How much time?" Rebecca's mask was slipping. "You're not getting any younger, and honestly, some of the things you've been doing lately—" "What things?" Turned to face her. She blinked, caught off guard. In my first life, I'd been too confused to challenge them. "Well, Mrs. Chen from next door said you knocked on her door at midnight last week asking if she'd seen your cat. You don't have a cat, Mom." A lie. I'd never spoken to Mrs. Chen about a cat, midnight or otherwise, but it was a good lie. Specific, embarrassing, impossible to disprove after the fact. "That's strange," I said calmly. "I should talk to Mrs. Chen about that." "She's very worried about you," Rebecca pressed. "We all are." "Then I'll reassure her myself," I smiled. "Tomorrow morning?" I watched Rebecca and Michael exchange a look. They hadn't expected resistance. In my first life, I'd been so mortified by the cat incident that I'd signed the POA the next day just to prove I could make rational decisions. But this life, I knew the truth. Mrs. Chen was Rebecca's cousin. The whole family was in on it. And after they left, earlier than planned, frustrated by my stubbornness, I sat in my kitchen and made a list. Not on paper. They'd go through my trash, my drawers, anywhere they could find ammunition. I made the list in my mind, pulling from memories of my first death. Things I needed to do. Document everything. Get my own lawyer. Gather evidence of their manipulation. Stay confused enough to make them confident, but not so confused they could have me declared incompetent immediately. Make them commit their crimes on record. Things I knew they would do. Forge my signature if I didn't sign willingly. Isolate me from friends and anyone who could help. Gaslight me into thinking I was actually losing my memory. Drain my accounts the moment they had access. Escalate to physical abuse if I resisted. Things I had now that I didn't have before. Knowledge of their entire playbook, 3 years to prepare fury. The next morning, I did visit Mrs. Chen. The look of confusion on her face when I asked about the midnight cat incident was genuine. "I never said anything like that, Dorothy," she said, frowning. "Are you feeling all right?" "I'm feeling fine," I assured her. "I think there's been some miscommunication in my family, but I wanted to check with you directly. Your daughter-in-law asked me some odd questions last week," Mrs. Chen said slowly, "about whether I'd noticed you acting strangely. I told her you seemed perfectly normal to me." "Did she ask you to say I'd done anything unusual?" Mrs. Chen's expression hardened. "She suggested maybe I'd seen you wandering around confused late at night. I told her absolutely not. Dorothy, is something wrong? I made a decision. Can I ask you a favor? If anyone from my family asks you questions about me, about my behavior or my health, would you keep a record? Write down the date, what they asked, what you said." "Of course." She studied my face. "Dorothy, are you in some kind of trouble?" "Not yet," I said, "but I want to be prepared if I am." She nodded slowly. "My sister went through something similar with her kids. They were after her house. Be careful." I was careful. Meticulously careful. I went to a lawyer that week, not the one my family had recommended, but one I found through the Elder Law Association. His name was James Morrison, and he was in his 60s, sharp-eyed and skeptical in exactly the right ways. "I need to protect myself from my family," I told him in our first meeting. "They want me to sign over power of attorney, and I believe they intend to exploit me." He didn't dismiss me or suggest I was being paranoid. "Tell me everything." I told him about the pressure, the fake incidents, Rebecca's relationship to Mrs. Chen. I didn't tell him about dying and being reborn. He'd have me committed. But I told him I had a strong feeling about where this was heading. "I've seen this before," he said grimly. "More often than you'd think. Adult children view their elderly parents as ATMs, especially if there's a significant estate involved. What can I do? First, don't sign anything. Second, we create a comprehensive plan. I'll be your attorney with specific, limited powers, paying your bills from your accounts, but with full transparency and monthly reports. You maintain control of all major decisions. Third, we document everything. Every interaction with your family, I want you to write it down. Dates, times, what was said. What if they try to have me declared incompetent? Then you'll undergo an independent psychiatric evaluation. I have several excellent doctors who can assess your mental capacity objectively." He leaned forward. "Mrs. Patterson, if your family is planning what you think they're planning, they'll make mistakes. People like this always do. They get greedy, impatient. When they do, we'll be ready." I felt something I hadn't felt in my first life. Hope. "There's one more thing," I said. "I want to install security cameras in my home. I want everything recorded." He raised an eyebrow. "Expecting trouble?" "Preparing for it." The cameras went in that weekend, small, discreet, covering every room including my bedroom and bathroom. The installer, a young woman named Tasha who ran her own security business, set them up to upload continuously to cloud storage. "Password protect everything," I told her. "Use a password they'd never guess." "Who's they?" she asked. "My children." She didn't ask any more questions, just nodded and made sure the system was bulletproof. She also gave me her card. If you ever feel unsafe, you call me directly. I mean it. I have friends in the police department, and I've worked with elder abuse cases before. Another ally. I was building an army. Michael called 3 days after my birthday. Mom, have you thought about what we discussed? I have, I said pleasantly, and I've decided to decline. I appreciate your concern, but I'm managing fine on my own. Silence on the other end. Then, Mom, I really think you should reconsider. Sarah and I have been comparing notes, and we're both worried. You called her last week at 3 a.m. asking about Dad. Dad's been dead for 5 years. A lie. I'd never called Sarah at 3 a.m. I checked my phone records to be sure. No outgoing calls to her number at all that week. That's interesting, I said, because my phone records don't show any calls to Sarah that night. Are you checking up on us? His voice was incredulous. Mom, this is exactly the kind of paranoid behavior we're worried about. I'm not paranoid. I'm careful. There's a difference. You're calling your own children liars. I'm saying there's been a misunderstanding. If Sarah thinks I called her, perhaps she should check her phone records too. He hung up on me. Good, let them scramble. The next escalation came from Sarah herself, showing up at my door with a woman in a professional pantsuit. Mom, this is Dr. Hendricks, Sarah said, breezing past me into my living room. She's a geriatric psychiatrist. I thought it would be good for you to have a checkup, just to make sure everything is okay. Dr. Hendricks had kind eyes but a firm handshake. Mrs. Patterson, your daughter is concerned about some recent memory issues. Would you mind if I asked you a few questions? I would mind, actually, I said politely. I didn't consent to this visit, and I have my own doctor who monitors my health. Mom, don't be difficult, Sarah snapped. We're trying to help you. If you want to help me, you'll make appointments with my permission rather than ambushing me in my own home. I turned to Dr. Hendricks. I'm sure you're an excellent doctor, but I'm not your patient, and I don't consent to an examination. Dr. Hendricks looked between me and Sarah, clearly uncomfortable. Mrs. Patterson is right. I can't perform an evaluation without consent. She's not in her right mind to consent. Sarah's voice rose. That's the whole point. I'm standing right here, I said coldly, talking coherently, making my wishes clear. If you think I lack capacity, you'll need to follow proper legal channels, which require actual evidence and a court order. I'd learned that in my first life, too late. This time I'd done my homework. Dr. Hendricks left quickly after that. Sarah stayed. What are you playing at? She demanded once we were alone. I'm not playing at anything. I'm living my life. You're making this so much harder than it needs to be. We're your children. We love you. We just want to make sure you're taken care of. Then visit me because you enjoy my company, not because you want something from me. Her face twisted. You've always been selfish. Dad spoiled you rotten, and now you're sitting on all this money acting like we don't exist. There it was. The real Sarah, the one who'd smiled while I rotted in that nursing home. Your father left his estate to me, I said quietly. That was his choice. If he'd wanted to leave it to you, he would have. He would have if he'd known you'd turn into this bitter old woman. I think you should leave now. Fine. She grabbed her purse. But don't come crying to us when you fall and break your hip, and there's nobody to help you. Don't expect us to drop everything for someone who won't even sign a simple piece of paper to make our lives easier. I won't, I promised. After she slammed the door, I sat down and wrote everything in my journal. The ambush with Dr. Hendricks, Sarah's threats, the timeline. James had given me a special notebook for this, with numbered pages and a binding that would show if pages were removed. Evidence. The cameras had caught everything too. Sarah's face when she called me selfish. Her threat to abandon me if I fell and needed help. It was all preserved in perfect high definition. They came together next time, a united front. Michael, Sarah, and Rebecca, sitting in my living room with grave expressions. Mom, we need to talk about your safety, Michael began. We think you should move to assisted living, Rebecca added. Somewhere with staff who can keep an eye on you. I'm perfectly safe here. Are you? Sarah pulled out her phone. Because I have photos of your kitchen from last week. Spoiled food in the fridge. The stove left on. This isn't safe, Mom. She turned the phone to show me. The photos were real, of a kitchen with moldy food and a glowing stove burner. But it wasn't my kitchen. The countertops were different, the backsplash wrong. "That's not my kitchen," I said. "Of course it is." "No, it isn't. My backsplash is blue tile. That's white subway tile. You're showing me photos of someone else's kitchen and claiming it's mine." Rebecca's eyes widened slightly. They hadn't expected me to notice. "You must be confused," Michael said smoothly. "You had the backsplash redone last month. Don't you remember?" "I didn't redo anything. And you're welcome to look at my kitchen right now to see that you're lying to me." "See?" Sarah said to her brother, as if I wasn't there. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. She's completely disoriented." "I'm not disoriented. I'm being gaslit. There's a difference, and I'm fully aware of it." The room went silent. "You think we're trying to trick you?" Michael's voice was soft, dangerous. "Mom, that's paranoid delusion. That's a serious symptom." "Is it paranoia if you really are lying to me? Because you are. That's not my kitchen in those photos." Rebecca stood up. "This is going nowhere. Michael, Sarah, I think we need to consult with our lawyer about other options." "What other options?" I asked. "Options for when someone can't make sound decisions for themselves," Rebecca said. "For their own protection." They were threatening me now. Good. Threats were evidence. After they left, I called James. "They're escalating," I told him. "They tried to show me fake photos and claim I'm delusional when I called them out." "Did you get copies of the photos?" "The cameras caught everything." "Perfect. Let them keep digging their hole. But Dorothy, I need to ask, do you have somewhere safe you can go if things get worse? Family who would take you in?" "My younger brother lives in Arizona. We talk every week." "Good. Keep him updated. If they try to move you against your will, he's your escape route." "It won't come to that." "It might. People get desperate." He was right. They were desperate. The interventions became more frequent. They'd show up at random times, always with new evidence of my incompetence. A neighbor who'd supposedly seen me wandering in my nightgown. Another lie. I checked with the neighbor who had no idea what they were talking about. A missed bill payment. I pulled my bank records. Everything was current. A forgotten family dinner. They'd never invited me. Each time I documented. Each time the cameras recorded. And each time they got angrier that I wouldn't break. The first physical incident happened 2 months after my birthday. Michael let himself into my house. He still had a key from when his father was alive, and found me in the kitchen making lunch. "Mom, we need to talk." "Then call first. You can't just walk into my house." "It's not your house. It's Dad's house. You're just living in it. Your father left it to me in his will. It's legally mine." He stepped closer, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before, or maybe I had, in my first life, but I'd been too drugged to recognize it. Rage. "You're being incredibly selfish," he said quietly. "Do you know how much money you're sitting on while Sarah and I struggle? While your grandchildren go without?" "Your children aren't going without. You and Sarah both have good jobs." "We have expenses, bills. Do you know how much college costs these days?" "I've offered to help with college funds. You both refused." "Because we need the money now. Not in some trust fund you control. We need access to what's rightfully ours." "Nothing is rightfully yours until I die. That's how inheritance works." He grabbed my arm, hard. His fingers dug into my flesh, and I gasped. "You're going to sign the papers," he said. "One way or another. If you won't do it voluntarily, we'll have you declared incompetent. We have doctors who'll say whatever we need them to say." "Let go of me." "Not until you listen. Sign the papers, or we make your life hell. We'll have you committed. We'll tell everyone you're senile. We'll make sure you die alone in some state facility with nothing." "Like you did before?" I whispered. He froze. "What?" "Nothing. Let go of my arm, or I'm calling the police." He released me with a shove that sent me stumbling backward. I caught myself on the counter. "Call them," he sneered. "Tell them your son visited you, and you're making up stories about abuse. See who they believe. A concerned son, or a confused old woman? He left, slamming the door. I stood in my kitchen, shaking, cradling my arm. Already bruises were forming, dark purple marks in the shape of fingers. But I was smiling, because the cameras had caught everything. Video and audio, crystal clear. Michael admitting they planned to have me declared incompetent with bought doctors. Michael grabbing me, threatening me, shoving me, elder abuse on film. I took photos of my arm from multiple angles, then called Tasha. I need you to pull the footage from today and make sure it's secured, I told her. Multiple backups, somewhere my family can't access. What happened? My son assaulted me. Dorothy, you need to call the police. Not yet. I need more. More? He hurt you. And if I report it now, he'll claim it was an accident or I'm exaggerating. He'll say I'm senile and making things up. I need a pattern. I need undeniable evidence that this is systematic abuse, not a one-time incident. Tasha was quiet. For a long moment, I don't like this. I don't either, but I know how this works. One incident is, he said, she said. Multiple incidents is a criminal case. How many more incidents are you willing to endure? As many as it takes. I didn't have to wait long. Sarah came by the next week with papers. Mom, I need you to sign these. They're for a new bank account where we can help you manage your money better. I'm not signing anything. Yes, you are. She put the papers on the table in front of me with a pen. Sign them? No. She leaned down, her face inches from mine. I'm not asking. You're going to sign these papers, and then you're going to sign the power of attorney, and then you're going to do exactly what we tell you. Because if you don't, I will make your life a living nightmare. I will tell everyone you know that you are a demented old woman. I will have you committed. I will make sure you never see daylight outside a psych ward again. Kimo, you do that to your own mother? You're not my mother. You're a bank account with legs. Now sign. When I didn't move, she grabbed my hand and tried to force the pen into it. I pulled away and she slapped me. The sound echoed in my kitchen. Sign it! She grabbed my face, her nails digging into my cheeks. Sign it or I swear to God. Sarah, stop! Rebecca's voice came from the doorway. I hadn't heard her come in. Sarah must have brought her as backup, but she was staring at her sister-in-law in horror. What are you doing? Sarah released me, breathing hard. She won't sign. So you're assaulting her? Are you insane? She's being unreasonable. She's allowed to be unreasonable. It's her money. Rebecca looked at me, and I saw something unexpected in her eyes. Shame. Mrs. Patterson, I'm sorry. This has gotten out of hand. Has it? I touched my face where Sarah's nails had broken the skin. Blood came away on my fingers. Or is this exactly what was always planned? Rebecca didn't answer. She just turned and walked out. Sarah followed, but not before leaning in to whisper, "This isn't over." I sat alone in my kitchen, bleeding and bruised, and felt nothing but cold determination. 2 assaults on camera, 2 family members showing their true faces. But I needed more. I needed the conspiracy, the planning, the proof that this was coordinated. I got it 3 days later. I'd gone to bed early, exhausted from stress. Around midnight, I heard voices downstairs. My children letting themselves in with their keys, thinking I was asleep. I crept to the top of the stairs and listened. The cameras would get better audio, but I wanted to hear this myself. She's getting worse, Michael was saying. More paranoid. She accused me of lying about her kitchen. Because you were lying, you idiot, Sarah hissed. Those photos were from my house. I told you she'd notice. She's not supposed to be coherent enough to notice. What happened to those medications you were putting in her food? My blood ran cold. I couldn't keep it up, Sarah said. She stopped eating anything I brought her, and she changed her locks. I can't get in when she's not home anymore. We're running out of time, Rebecca's voice. The longer this drags on, the more likely she is to talk to a lawyer or change her will entirely. Then we move to the next phase, Michael said. We have Dr. Hendricks ready to testify about her mental state. She refused to meet with Dr. Hendricks. Doesn't matter. Hendricks will say she did an evaluation and found Mom incompetent. We have the paperwork ready. Judge Morrison owes me a favor from the country club. He'll sign the order. A forced competency hearing? Rebecca sounded uncertain. Michael, that's... That's what needs to happen. Once she's declared incompetent, we get emergency guardianship. Then we can move her to a facility, sell this house, and access the accounts. What if she fights it? She's 72 years old. Who's going to listen to her? Were her loving children concerned about their mother's deteriorating mental health? We have a doctor willing to lie. We have a judge in our pocket. She has nothing. She has her mind, Rebecca said softly. She's sharper than both of you combined, and you're underestimating her. Whose side are you on? Sarah demanded. I'm just saying this is wrong. She's your mother. She's an obstacle to $2 million, Michael corrected. Are you in or out? Silence. Then, I'm in, but I don't like it. Nobody cares what you like. Sarah, you file the papers tomorrow. I'll talk to Judge Morrison. We can have the hearing scheduled for next week. They left the way they came, through the back door, not knowing they'd just confessed to conspiracy, fraud, bribery, and attempted elder abuse on camera. I went back to my bedroom and cried. Not from fear, but from relief. I had them. I called James first thing in the morning. It's time. You're sure? I'm sure. They're planning to have me declared incompetent with a corrupt doctor and a bribed judge. They've been drugging my food. They've assaulted me twice. I have everything on video. Forward me everything. I'm going to need a few days to prepare, but Dorothy, we're going to destroy them. I want criminal charges. All of them. Elder abuse, assault, fraud, conspiracy, bribery of a public official. We can make a case for all of it. But you need to be prepared for what comes next. This will be public. Ugly. Good. Let everyone see exactly who they are. James contacted the police, the state attorney general's office, and the Adult Protective Services Division. Within 48 hours, my house was full of investigators, all watching the footage from my cameras with expressions of growing horror. The detective assigned to my case was a woman named Maria Santos, mid-40s with tired eyes that had seen too much. Mrs. Patterson, I need to be honest. With you, she said after watching Michael assault me. Cases like this are hard to prosecute. Juries are sympathetic to families, and defense lawyers will paint you as a confused old woman who misunderstood normal family concern. Then it's good I have video evidence? Video helps, but they'll claim the videos are taken out of context or that you're misinterpreting normal family disagreements. She paused. However, the recording of them discussing bribing a judge and using a doctor to commit perjury, that's different. That's conspiracy to commit multiple felonies. That we can work with. What do you need from me? I need you to wear a wire. I need you to get them to talk about their plans again, on record with our equipment. The defense can't claim our recordings are doctored or misinterpreted. When? They filed the competency petition this morning. The hearing is scheduled for next week. We need the recording before then. I called Sarah and asked her to come over to discuss signing the papers. She arrived within an hour, Michael and Rebecca in tow, all of them trying to hide their excitement. I was wearing the wire the detective had given me, a tiny microphone taped between my breasts. I've been thinking, I told them, sitting in my living room while they circled like sharks. Maybe you're right. Maybe I do need help. Oh, Mom. Sarah sat next to me, taking my hand in fake comfort. We're so glad you're finally seeing reason. But I need to understand what happens next. What exactly are you planning? Planning? Michael frowned. Once I sign the papers, what happens to me? Where will I live? We found a wonderful facility, Rebecca said. It's very affordable. How affordable? Does it matter? Sarah asked. It matters to me. This is my life we're talking about. Fine. Michael pulled out his phone. It's called Shady Pines. It's about $2,000 a month. I researched Shady Pines, I interrupted. It has multiple citations for health code violations and elder neglect. The state almost shut it down last year. Who told you that? Sarah's grip on my hand tightened. I looked it up myself. I'm not signing myself into a facility with a history of neglect. You don't get to choose. Sarah's mask dropped completely. Once you sign that power of attorney, we decide where you go. And you're going to the cheapest place we can find because we're not wasting your money on luxury care when you're just going to die anyway. Sarah, Rebecca warned. No, I'm done pretending. She's been a burden for years. Dad left her everything, and she's hoarding it like a dragon while we struggle. We're her children. We deserve that money." "You deserve nothing," I said quietly. "You're trying to steal from me." "It's not stealing if it's ours by right." Michael stood, looming over me. "You're going to sign those papers, and then you're going to do exactly what we say, or we'll make your life hell. We already have the competency hearing scheduled. We have a doctor who'll say you're senile. We have Judge Morrison ready to declare you incompetent." "You bribed a judge," I said flatly, making sure the wire caught every word. "We did what was necessary, and once you're declared incompetent, you'll never see the outside of an institution again. You'll die alone in a state hospital, and we'll divide your estate exactly as we please." "Like you planned all along?" "Like we've been planning for 3 years," Sarah screamed. "Ever since Dad died. This is our inheritance, and you're just the obstacle in the way." The door burst open. Detective Santos and 4 uniformed officers stormed in. "Sarah Patterson, Michael Patterson, Rebecca Patterson, you're all under arrest." The looks on their faces would sustain me for years. Michael tried to run. An officer tackled him in my hallway. Sarah started screaming that this was a setup, that I'd tricked them, that none of this was admissible. Rebecca just closed her eyes and held out her wrists for the handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent," Detective Santos said, and listed off the charges. Conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted elder abuse, assault, battery, bribery of a public official, attempted theft. The list went on and on. They were taken away in handcuffs while I stood in my living room, surrounded by police officers, finally safe in my own home. "Are you all right, Mrs. Patterson?" Detective Santos asked. "I'm perfect." The trial took 8 months to get to court. 8 months of depositions, evidence gathering, and watching my children's faces on the news as they proclaimed their innocence. Their lawyer tried everything. Claimed I'd manipulated them, that I was vindictive, that this was a family dispute blown out of proportion. But the videos didn't lie. The wire recordings were crystal clear. And when Rebecca, facing the harshest charges, agreed to testify against Michael and Sarah in exchange for a reduced sentence, the prosecution's case became airtight. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Michael got 12 years for conspiracy, fraud, assault, and attempted bribery. Sarah got 10 years for the same, plus an additional 2 years for the assault with the scratches that had scarred my face. Rebecca got 5 years with the possibility of parole after 2, in recognition of her testimony and her obvious reluctance to participate. Judge Morrison was disbarred and charged separately. Dr. Hendricks lost her medical license. I sat in the courtroom and watched my children be led away in chains, and I felt nothing but relief. The house sold quickly. I didn't want to live there anymore, not after everything that happened. Too many ghosts, even in this new life. I bought a smaller condo in a community with other active seniors, people who actually enjoyed each other's company rather than viewing each other as assets to exploit. My brother flew in from Arizona and stayed for a month, making sure I was settled. "I never liked Michael," he confessed one night over dinner. "Always seemed like he was calculating something." He was calculating how soon he could inherit. And now he's got 12 years to think about it. My brother raised his wine glass. "To you, sis, for being smarter than all of them combined." We drank to that. I rewrote my will, leaving everything to charity with small bequests to my grandchildren, Michael and Sarah's kids, who I hoped would grow up better than their parents. I made sure the will was ironclad, with provisions that if anyone contested it, they'd get nothing. Mrs. Chen visited often, so did Tasha, who became a friend rather than just my security consultant. James Morrison and I had lunch once a month, and he never charged me for the hours upon hours he'd spent building the case against my children. "You saved your own life," he told me. "I just helped document it." "I had practice," I said, thinking of my first death, my first life where I'd been too trusting and too kind. Practice? Let's just say I knew exactly what to expect from them. I'd seen this movie before. He didn't push, just smiled and changed the subject. I lived quietly and peacefully for the next several years. I volunteered at the library, taught art classes at the community center, traveled to places I'd always wanted to see. I made friends, real friends, who liked me for who I was rather than what I had. And every night, I went to sleep in my own bed, in my own home, free and safe and alive. The nightmares from my first life faded. The bruises, the fear, the loneliness of dying alone and unloved, all of it receded into memory, replaced by the satisfaction of justice served. I'd been given a second chance, and I'd used it to save myself. Not everyone gets that opportunity, but I did, and I made it count. When reporters asked me, and they did ask, for months after the trial, how I'd known to protect myself, how I'd been smart enough to document everything, I always gave the same answer. I listened to my instincts. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. I just had the advantage of seeing exactly who they were before they could destroy me. On what would have been my death day from my first life, I threw a party. Just me, Mrs. Chen, Tasha, James, my brother, and a few other friends. Nobody asked why we were celebrating, and I didn't explain. I just raised my glass and said, "To second chances." "To second chances," they echoed. "And to revenge," I added silently. "To seeing my abusers pay for every bruise, every threat, every moment of terror they inflicted on me. To justice." I'm 84 now, 12 years past my first death. My children are still in prison. Michael and Sarah, at least. Rebecca got out after 4 years and sent me a letter. I never opened it. I don't care what she has to say. I'm healthy, happy, and surrounded by people who actually care about me. My estate is managed by a professional firm, and every penny of it will go to charities that fight elder abuse when I die, which won't be for a long time if I have anything to say about it. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I hadn't been reborn with my memories intact. If I'd signed those papers like they wanted, let them ship me off to Shady Pines, let them drain my accounts, and leave me to rot, I'd be dead. That's what would have happened, just like before. But instead, they're the ones who lost everything. Their freedom, their reputations, their futures. And I'm here, living my best life, making sure every day counts. People ask if I miss my children, if I regret turning them in. I don't. I miss the children I thought I had. The ones who loved me, who called just to chat, who visited because they wanted to see me. But those children never existed. They were always just waiting for me to die so they could collect. The real Michael and Sarah are in prison where they belong, and I sleep soundly every night knowing I put them there. That's not cruelty, that's survival. And in the end, I survived. They didn't count on that. They thought I was weak, confused, easy to manipulate. They were wrong. I was reborn with knowledge, and I used it to make sure they faced every consequence of their actions. Some might call it revenge. I call it justice, and it was absolutely perfectly worth it.